The phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m., cutting through the silence of our Victorian home like a knife through butter. I was nursing my third bourbon in the study, staring at insurance claims that blurred together after 14 hours at the office. The text from my wife Lila made me set down my glass with deliberate precision. Staying at Monica's for the weekend. Girls' night turned into a sleepover. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. Right. I'd heard those words so many times they'd lost all meaning, like a song played on repeat until it becomes white noise. Lila had been saying a lot of things lately that felt like white noise. I walked to the kitchen window and peered through the fog rolling in from the coast. Our little Maine town of Millbrook looked peaceful at night, all those Victorian houses lined up like dominoes, hiding their secrets behind lace curtains and weathered shutters. Everyone knew everyone here, which made keeping secrets both easier and harder than you'd think. The bourbon had made me philosophical, but not stupid. Something about Lila's text felt wrong. Maybe it was the timing. She'd never been one for spontaneous sleepovers. Or maybe it was the exclamation point and heart emoji, like she was trying too hard to sound casual. I scrolled through our recent messages. Her responses had been getting shorter, more distant. Working late again. Out with the girls. Don't wait up. When was the last time we'd actually talked? Really talked? Not just exchanged logistics about bills and groceries and whose turn it was to take out the trash? My finger hovered over Monica's contact. Lila's best friend since college, married to Paul, lived in that modern monstrosity on Elm Street that looked like a glass box someone had dropped in the middle of a fairy tale neighborhood. If anyone would know what was really going on, it would be Monica. The phone rang twice before a groggy voice answered. Evan, do you know what time it is? Sorry, Monica. I just wanted to check if Lila needed anything. She said she was staying over for girls' night. Silence. Then, girls' night? Evan, I'm in Boston visiting my sister. I've been here since Thursday. The bourbon turned to acid in my stomach. Boston? Yeah, Wait, Lila said she was staying with me? That's weird. Maybe she meant Tessa? You know how she gets names mixed up when she's tired. I knew exactly how Lila got when she was tired, and mixing up names wasn't one of her habits. Right, Tessa. I'll try her. Thanks, Monica. Evan, is everything... I hung up and immediately dialed Tessa's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. On the third try, she picked up, sounding irritated. Evan, it's almost midnight. What's wrong? Hey, Tessa. Sorry to wake you. Lila's staying over for girls' night, and I wanted to make sure she had her medication. She forgot to take it earlier. Staying over where? I haven't seen Lila in 2 weeks. We were supposed to get coffee last Tuesday, but she canceled. Said she had to work late. The house suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. Like it was holding its breath, waiting for me to figure out what I already knew but didn't want to admit. Must be another friend then. Sorry to bother you. Evan, are you sure everything's okay? You sound, everything's fine. Good night, Tessa. I set the phone down and stared at it like it might explode. 2 friends, 2 different stories, and Lila somewhere else entirely, lying about where she was and who she was with. I poured another bourbon, but it tasted like disappointment. The house creaked around me, settling into its bones the way old houses do. We'd bought this place 5 years ago, right after we got married. Lila had fallen in love with the wraparound porch and the bay windows. I'd fallen in love with the basement workshop and the fact that it was the kind of house where you could hear everything. Footsteps on the stairs, conversations in the kitchen, the front door opening and closing. The kind of house where you'd know if someone was sneaking around. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, each step echoing in the silence. Lila's side of the bed was perfectly made, like she'd never planned to sleep in it tonight. Her overnight bag was gone from the closet, along with her favorite jeans and the blue sweater that made her eyes look like summer sky. But it was what she'd left behind that made my blood run cold. Her laptop sat open on the dresser, password screen glowing. Lila was paranoid about her laptop. She worked in HR and dealt with confidential employee information. She never left it unlocked, never left it out in the open, unless she'd been in a hurry, unless she'd been distracted. I sat down in front of the screen and tried the obvious passwords first. Our anniversary, her birthday, my birthday, the name of her childhood dog. Nothing. Then, on a hunch that made my chest tight, I typed, Derek 2019. The screen unlocked. Derek Quimby, Lila's high school boyfriend, the one who'd broken her heart senior year by choosing Boston University over staying local for her. The one she still talked about sometimes when she'd had too much wine, wondering what might have been. The one who'd moved back to Millbrook 6 months ago to develop waterfront condos. I sat there staring at the desktop for a long moment, bourbon and dread warring in my stomach. Part of me wanted to close the laptop and pretend I'd never opened it. Part of me wanted to pour another drink and go to bed and wake up tomorrow to find this was all some misunderstanding. But the part of me that had spent 10 years investigating insurance fraud knew better. When people started lying about little things, they were usually hiding something big. I opened her browser history first. Lots of real estate websites, Zillow searches for expensive houses, restaurant reviews for places I'd never heard of, the kind with wine lists longer than our mortgage payment. Then I found the folder. It was buried deep in her documents, labeled Project Files, innocuous enough that most people would skip right over it. But I wasn't most people. I was a man whose wife had just lied about where she was spending the weekend. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Lila at dinner with Derek, both of them dressed up, her hand on his arm. Lila in Derek's car, a silver BMW I recognized from seeing it parked outside the fancy coffee shop downtown. Lila and Derek at the beach, her head on his shoulder, both of them laughing at something off camera. And then there were the text message screenshots. Months of them. Can't wait to see you tonight. E is working late again. The way you kissed me yesterday. I can't stop thinking about it. I should leave him. We could be together like we always planned. Soon, baby. Just need to figure out the logistics. Don't want him to get suspicious. I scrolled through message after message, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. They'd been planning this for months. Weekend getaways disguised as girls' trips, late nights at the office that were really dinner dates, a whole secret life I'd been too trusting, too busy, too stupid to see. The last message was from yesterday. Told E I'm staying at Monica's this weekend. Can't wait to have you all to myself. This time tomorrow we'll be in bed at your place and I won't have to pretend anymore. I closed the laptop with shaking hands. The house felt different now, like it belonged to strangers. Every shared memory, every inside joke, every quiet moment we'd spent together. All of it contaminated by the knowledge that she'd been planning her escape while I was planning our future. But as I sat there in the dark, something cold and calculating settled over me. Lila thought she was so clever, sneaking around, covering her tracks. She thought I was just another clueless husband who'd never figure it out. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Frankie Morrison, my best friend since high school, construction foreman, and the kind of guy who'd help you move a body without asking questions. He answered on the second ring, wide awake despite the hour. Ev, what's wrong? You busy this weekend? Not particularly. Why? Feel like doing a little surveillance work? I'll pay you in beer and the satisfaction of watching karma in action. Frankie was quiet for a moment. Then, what did Lila do? Let's just say my wife isn't where she says she is, and she's not with who she says she's with. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And Ev, whatever you're planning, I'm in. I hung up and walked to the window, looking out at the fog-shrouded street. Somewhere out there, my wife was in another man's bed, probably laughing about how easy it was to fool her boring insurance agent husband. She had no idea that her boring husband was about to become her worst nightmare. Frankie arrived in his beat-up Ford pickup, engine rumbling like distant thunder. I was waiting on the porch with a thermos of coffee and a plan that had been forming since I'd closed Lila's laptop. "You look like hell," he said, climbing out of the truck. Frankie was built like a brick wall, 6'2", shoulders that could carry a house, hands that could crush beer cans or gently hold a crying child with equal ease. We'd been friends since we were 12, when he'd stood up to the high school bullies who thought picking on the skinny kid with glasses was good sport. "Feel worse," I said, handing him the coffee. "Thanks for coming." "Always. Now tell me what's going on." I gave him the short version, the text, the lies, the laptop, the photos. Frankie listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter with each detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Derek Quimby," he said finally. "That pretentious ass with the BMW and the fancy suits." "You know him?" "Know of him. He tried to buy the lot where my crew's been working, wanted to tear down Mrs. Patterson's house to build some glass monstrosity. When she refused to sell, he started making her life hell. Property inspectors, noise complaints, the works. Real piece of work." I felt something dark and satisfying settle in my chest. "Perfect. So, what's the plan?" "First, we confirm what I already know. Then we document everything. Then—" I smiled, and it felt like winter. "Then we make sure they both get exactly what they deserve." We drove through the empty streets of Millbrook in Frankie's truck, headlights cutting through the fog. Derek lived in the new development on the hill overlooking the harbor, all modern lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of house that screamed, "I have money and want everyone to know it." The BMW was in the driveway. Next to it sat Lila's Honda Civic. "Well," Frankie said quietly, "that answers that question." I pulled out my phone and took pictures. The license plates, the house number, the timestamp. Evidence. In my line of work, documentation was everything. "You want to go knock on the door?" Frankie asked. "Not yet. Let's see what else we can find out first." We parked down the street and waited. At 2:30 a.m., a light came on in what looked like the master bedroom. Two silhouettes moved behind the curtains, and I felt my stomach turn over. "I can't watch this," I said. "You don't have to, but you need the evidence." Frankie was right. I took more pictures, hating every second of it, but knowing I'd need them later. For the divorce lawyer. For the settlement negotiations. For the moment when Lila tried to deny everything and play the victim. We sat in silence for another hour, watching the house, watching my marriage die in real time. Finally, the lights went out. "Come on," I said. "Let's go home. I've seen enough." But as we drove away, I was already planning the next step. Saturday morning, I called in sick to work, first time in 3 years, and drove to the office of Patricia Hendricks, the best divorce attorney in Millbrook. She had a reputation for being ruthless, thorough, and expensive. Perfect for what I had in mind. "Mr. Masters," she said, looking over the photos I'd printed, "these are quite damning. How long do you suspect this has been going on?" "Based on the text messages, at least 4 months, maybe longer." She nodded, making notes. "Maine is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still impact property division and alimony, especially if there's evidence of deception or financial misconduct. Do you have access to your joint accounts?" "Yes. Why?" "I'd like you to review the statements for the past 6 months. Look for unusual charges, restaurants, hotels, gifts, anything that might indicate she was spending marital assets on this relationship." I spent the rest of Saturday going through bank statements and credit card bills. What I found made my blood boil. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. A weekend at a bed and breakfast in Bar Harbor that she'd told me was a work conference. Lingerie purchases from Victoria's Secret. Lingerie I'd never seen. She'd been financing her affair with our money, our future, the savings account we'd been building to maybe buy a bigger house, maybe start a family. By Sunday afternoon, I had a file 2 inches thick, photos, bank statements, printed text messages, a timeline of lies and deception going back 6 months. Patricia had been right. This wasn't just adultery. This was fraud. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. Having such a great time with the girls. Might stay another night. Miss you. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, miss you too. Take your time. But what I was really thinking was, take all the time you want. You're going to need it. Sunday evening, I called my insurance agency partner, Mike Sullivan. We'd built the business together over 8 years, and I trusted him completely. Mike, I need a favor. A big one. Name it. I need you to hire a private investigator. Best one you can find. I'll pay for it personally, but I need it kept separate from the business. Mike was quiet for a moment. This about Lila? How did you... Ev, you've been distracted for weeks, and yesterday when you called in sick, you sounded like someone had died. What's going on? I gave him the basics. Mike listened, swearing under his breath. Jesus, Ev, I'm sorry. What do you need? Documentation. Professional grade surveillance. I want to know everywhere they go, everything they do. I want a paper trail so solid that when this goes to court, there won't be any question about what happened. Consider it done. I know a guy, ex-cop, does corporate security now, discreet, thorough, and he owes me a favor. Thanks, Mike. I owe you. No, you don't. That's what partners are for. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical Maine weather that matched my mood perfectly. Lila was supposed to come home today, and I was curious to see what story she'd tell about her weekend with the girls. I went to work early, needing the distraction of routine. Insurance claims, policy reviews, client meetings, the mundane details of other people's disasters. It was almost comforting, dealing with problems that had clear solutions and defined outcomes. Around noon, Patricia Hendricks called. Mr. Masters, I've reviewed everything you brought me. This is one of the most thoroughly documented cases of adultery I've seen. Your wife has been remarkably careless. What's our next move? That depends on what you want. We could file immediately, seek temporary orders for support and property division, or... She paused. We could wait. Let her dig the hole deeper. Sometimes patience pays off in these situations. What do you mean? Well, if she's planning to leave you for Mr. Quimby, she might make some moves that would be advantageous to us. Transferring assets, quitting her job, making statements about her intentions. The more rope we give her, the more she might hang herself with. I thought about it. The idea of waiting, of pretending everything was normal while building my case, had a certain appeal, like setting a trap and waiting for the prey to walk into it. How long? A few weeks, maybe a month, long enough to see what she does next. Do it. But I want everything documented. Every lie, every secret meeting, every dollar she spends on him. When this is over, I want her to understand exactly how thoroughly she destroyed our marriage. At 3:30, Lila texted, "Just left Monica's. Be home by 5. Can't wait to see you." I smiled at my computer screen, and my secretary Jennifer looked concerned. "You okay, Mr. Masters? You look..." I look what? I don't know. Different. Like you're planning something. Jennifer had been with the agency for 6 years. She knew me well enough to read my moods, and she was right. I was planning something. Something that would make Lila's little affair look like child's play. Just thinking about the future, Jennifer. About making some changes. She nodded, but she still looked worried. Well, whatever you're thinking, just be careful, okay? Sometimes when we're hurt, we make decisions we regret later. Don't worry, I said, turning back to my computer. I'm not going to do anything I'll regret. What I didn't say was that I was going to do plenty of things that Lila would regret. And Derek Quimby, and anyone else who'd helped them lie to me for the past 6 months. The game was just beginning, and they had no idea they were playing with someone who made a living investigating deception. They were about to learn that boring insurance agents could be very creative when properly motivated. Lila walked through our front door at 5:17 p.m., looking radiant in a way that made my stomach clench. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair had that just rolled out of bed tousle that I used to love, and she was wearing the blue sweater that brought out her eyes. The blue sweater she'd worn to dinner with Derek 3 weeks ago, according to the photos on her laptop. "Hey, baby," she said, dropping her overnight bag and coming over to kiss me. Her lips tasted like mint gum and lies. "I missed you." "Missed you too," I said, and it wasn't entirely false. I missed the woman I thought I'd married, before I learned she was capable of this level of deception. "How was girls' weekend?" "Oh, you know how it is with Monica and the gang. Too much wine, too much gossip, not enough sleep." She laughed, and it sounded perfectly natural. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed every word. "What did you guys do?" "The usual. Watched movies, painted our nails, talked about our husbands." She winked at me. "Don't worry, I only said good things." I bet she did. I wondered if Derek had been listening, if they'd laughed together about her boring husband who worked late and never suspected a thing. "Monica seemed pretty tired when I talked to her," I said casually, watching Lila's face. For just a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Panic? Confusion? Then her smile was back in place. "When did you talk to Monica?" "Friday night, called to see if you needed anything. She sounded half asleep." "Oh, right. Yeah, she was exhausted. Work's been crazy for her lately." Lila turned away to hang up her coat, and I saw her hands shake slightly. Good. Let her wonder what else I knew. "So, what did you do this weekend?" she asked, settling onto the couch next to me. "I hope you didn't just work the whole time." "Caught up on some reading. Had a few beers with Frankie. Quiet weekend." "That's nice. You worked too hard." She curled up against my side, and I forced myself not to pull away. Her perfume smelled different. Expensive, unfamiliar. Another gift from Derek, probably. We ordered Chinese takeout and watched a movie, playing the roles of happily married couple with Oscar-worthy performances. Lila laughed at all the right moments, made comments about the plot, fed me lo mein with her chopsticks like we were newlyweds. But I noticed she kept checking her phone. Quick glances when she thought I wasn't looking, fingers moving in what looked like text messages during the bathroom breaks. Around 10 p.m., her phone buzzed with a call. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. "Work," she said quickly. "I should take this. Some crisis with the Johnson account." She disappeared into the kitchen, and I could hear her voice through the thin walls. Not the words, but the tone. Soft. Intimate. Nothing like how she talked to her coworkers. When she came back, she looked flustered. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine. Just some paperwork I need to finish tonight. I might have to go in early tomorrow." "On a Tuesday?" "You know how it is. Crisis management." I knew exactly how it was, and it had nothing to do with paperwork. That night, Lila fell asleep quickly, curled on her side, facing away from me. I lay awake listening to her breathe, studying the curve of her shoulder, the way her hair spilled across the pillow. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of sharing a bed, sharing dreams, sharing a life, and for the past 6 months, it had all been a lie. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Hendricks. "PI starts surveillance tomorrow. Keep acting normal. Document everything." Acting normal. Right. Like there was anything normal about sleeping next to someone who was planning to leave you for their high school boyfriend. But I could do this. I'd spent my career investigating fraud, uncovering lies, building cases against people who thought they were smarter than the system. This was just another case, the most personal case of my life, but still just a case. And I was very good at my job. Tuesday morning, Lila was up early, showering and getting dressed with unusual care. The black skirt that hugged her curves, the silk blouse I'd bought her for Christmas, heels that added 3 inches to her height. "Big meeting today?" I asked, sipping my coffee. Something like that. Might be late tonight. Don't wait up. Another crisis? She paused in applying her lipstick. Red, bold, the color she wore when she wanted to make an impression. Just busy season, you understand. I understood perfectly. Busy season in Derek Quimby's bed. After she left, I called in late to work and drove to Derek's development office downtown. His BMW was in the parking lot, along with Lila's Honda. At 9:30 in the morning, when she should have been at her own job across town, I took pictures and sent them to Patricia, then drove to work with a smile on my face. Let them think they were being clever. Every lie just made my case stronger. Around noon, Mike Sullivan knocked on my office door. Got a minute? Always. What's up? He closed the door behind him and sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. I talked to my PI contact, guy named Ray Morrison. No relation to Frankie, different Morrison. He's good, discreet, and he's already started working. That was fast. He was between jobs, and when I told him what was going on, Mike shook his head. Guy's been married 30 years. Takes this stuff personally. What's he found so far? Mike pulled out a manila folder. Your wife met Derek Quimby at the Seaside Inn yesterday afternoon. Stayed for 2 hours, left separately, but she went back to his office after. The Seaside Inn. A little boutique hotel on the waterfront, the kind of place that charged $200 a night for the romantic atmosphere. I'd proposed taking Lila there for our anniversary last year, but she'd said it was too expensive. Apparently it wasn't too expensive when Derek was paying. There's more, Mike said. Ray did some background checking on Quimby. Guy's got a history, divorced twice, both times for adultery. Seems to have a pattern of going after married women. What kind of pattern? Love bombs them, makes them feel special, convinces them to leave their husbands. Then once the divorce is final and he's gotten what he wants. Mike shrugged. On to the next conquest. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Lila doesn't know this. I doubt it. Guys like Quimby are good at hiding their history. They know exactly what to say, exactly how to play the game. So Lila wasn't just cheating on me. She was being played by a professional, a man who specialized in destroying marriages for sport. That should have made me feel sorry for her. Instead, it just made me angrier. Keep Ray on them, I said. I want to know everything. Where they go, what they do, how much money she's spending on him. Everything. You got it. And Ev, I'm sorry. I know this has to be hell. It is. But it's also clarifying. I'm seeing things clearly for the first time in months. After Mike left, I sat in my office staring out at the harbor. Fishing boats bobbed at their moorings. Seagulls wheeled overhead. Tourists wandered the waterfront taking pictures of the quaint New England scenery. Normal life, continuing as if my world hadn't just exploded. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. Working through lunch. Might grab dinner with Monica later. Don't wait up. Monica, who was still in Boston visiting her sister. I texted back, sounds good, love you. But what I was really thinking was, lie to me again. Please. Every lie just makes this easier. That evening, I drove to Frankie's house, a modest Cape Cod on the working-class side of town. He was in his garage, working on his motorcycle, grease up to his elbows. How's the surveillance going? He asked without looking up. Better than expected. She's not even trying to be careful anymore. That's good for you, bad for her. Frankie, I need another favor. Now he looked up, wiping his hands on a rag. What kind of favor? The kind where you don't ask questions and I don't give details. He studied my face for a long moment. This about revenge? This is about justice. There's a difference. Is there? Because the look in your eyes right now. He shook his head. I've seen that look before. Usually right before someone does something they can't take back. I'm not going to hurt anyone, physically, but I am going to make sure they understand the consequences of their choices. Frankie was quiet for a moment, then nodded. What do you need? Information. About Derek Quimby's business, his properties, his vulnerabilities. You said he tried to force Mrs. Patterson to sell her house? Yeah. Real nasty about it, too. Why? Because men like Derek always have skeletons in their closets, and I'm very good at finding skeletons. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed and a note on Lila's pillow. Early meeting. See you tonight. XOXO. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash, then got dressed and drove to work. But instead of going to my office, I went to the town hall. Property records were public information. So were building permits, tax assessments, and code violations. I spent 3 hours going through Derek Quimby's business dealings, and what I found was very interesting. Unpaid contractor bills, permit violations on 2 of his developments, a lawsuit from investors who claimed he'd misrepresented the profitability of a condo project. Derek Quimby wasn't just a serial adulterer. He was also a sloppy businessman who cut corners and made enemies. Perfect. I made copies of everything and drove back to my office, where Jennifer greeted me with a concerned look. Mr. Masters, your wife called. She wanted to know if you were here. When I said you were out, she asked where you'd gone. What did you tell her? That I didn't know. Was that okay? That was perfect. Did she say anything else? She sounded nervous. Asked me to have you call her as soon as you got in. I looked at my phone. 3 missed calls from Lila, 2 voicemails, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. Where are you? Please call me. Evan, I'm worried. Call me back. This isn't like you. What's going on? I smiled and deleted all the messages without listening to the voicemails. Let her worry. Let her wonder what I was up to. Because tomorrow, she was going to find out. Wednesday morning brought the kind of crisp October weather that made Millbrook look like a postcard. All golden leaves and sparkling harbor views. Perfect weather for destroying someone's life. I'd spent Tuesday night preparing, documents printed and organized, phone calls made to carefully selected contacts, a plan that would unfold with the precision of a Swiss watch and the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Lila was in the shower when I made my first move. I took her laptop from the dresser, still password protected with Derek 2019, still full of incriminating evidence, and copied everything to a secure flash drive. Photos, text messages, browser history, the works. Then I did something that would have made my insurance fraud investigators proud. I created a timeline, dates, locations, expenses, a complete record of the affair that read like a case file, because that's exactly what it was. You're up early, Lila said, coming out of the bathroom in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. Couldn't sleep. Big day ahead. She paused in the middle of applying moisturizer. Big day how? Oh, you know, making some changes. Taking care of some business that's been put off too long. I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes, trying to figure out what I meant. Good. Let her wonder. Evan, about yesterday. I tried to call you. I know, I was busy. Busy with what? Jennifer said you weren't at the office. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago, married 6 years ago, planned a future with. The woman who'd been lying to my face for 6 months while planning her escape. Just taking care of some personal business. Nothing you need to worry about. But the way I said it made it clear that maybe she should worry. A lot. I left for work before she finished getting dressed, but not before I saw her grab her phone and start typing frantically, probably texting Derek, warning him that something was off. Too late for warnings. The wheels were already in motion. My first stop wasn't the office, it was the Millbrook Gazette, our local newspaper. The editor, Sally Chen, had been trying to get an interview with Derek Quimby for weeks about his controversial waterfront development project. Mr. Masters, she said, looking surprised to see me in her cluttered office. What brings you here? I have some information that might interest you about Derek Quimby's business practices. I laid out the documents I'd copied at town hall, the permit violations, the unpaid contractor bills, the investor lawsuit. Sally's eyes got wider with each page. Where did you get this? Public records. All perfectly legal. I just thought someone should connect the dots. Why are you bringing this to me? Because the people of Millbrook deserve to know what kind of businessman they're dealing with, and because I believe in transparency. Sally was already reaching for her notepad. Can I quote you? You can quote the documents. I prefer to remain anonymous. I left the newspaper office feeling lighter than I had in days. By this afternoon, Derek's business practices would be front-page news in a town where everyone read the local paper and gossip traveled faster than wildfire. My second stop was Mike Sullivan's office. Ray's been busy, Mike said, handing me another manila folder. Your wife and Quimby have been meeting almost daily. Hotels, restaurants, his office, his house. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Good. What about the financial stuff? That's where it gets interesting. She's been using your joint credit card to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, even bought him a watch last week. $1,500. $1,500 for a watch, using our money, our future. There's something else, Mike said. Ray overheard a conversation yesterday. They were talking about going away together next weekend. Some bed and breakfast in Vermont. She's planning to tell you it's another girl's trip. Vermont? Gets better. She's already made the reservation. 2 nights, honeymoon suite, charged to your joint account. I felt something dark and cold settle in my chest. She wasn't just cheating, she was flaunting it. Using our money to finance romantic getaways with her lover, lying about girls' trips that never happened. Mike, I need you to do something for me. Call the bed and breakfast. Tell them there's been a problem with the credit card used for the reservation. Ask them to call the card holder, that's me, to verify the charges. Mike grinned. You're going to intercept the call. I'm going to have a very interesting conversation with them about unauthorized charges, and about the kind of establishment that allows married women to use their husbands' credit cards to book romantic getaways with their lovers. That's cold, Ev. I like it. My third stop was Derek's office. Not to confront him, not yet, but to deliver a message. The receptionist was a young woman with pink hair and multiple piercings who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I'd like to leave something for Mr. Quimby, I said, handing her an envelope. He's in a meeting. Can I tell him what this is regarding? Just give him the envelope. He'll understand. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper with a simple message. I know. We need to talk. E.M. No threats, no accusations, just enough to let him know that the game had changed. I was walking back to my car when my phone rang. Patricia Hendricks. Mr. Masters, I just got a very interesting call from a bed and breakfast in Vermont. Something about unauthorized charges on your credit card? That was fast. They were very concerned about potential fraud. Apparently, a woman claiming to be Mrs. Masters made a reservation for this weekend, but when they called to verify the charges, the voice on your voicemail didn't match the woman who made the reservation. What did you tell them? That you'd be happy to come in and discuss the situation in person, with your attorney present, of course. Of course. Mr. Masters, you're playing a dangerous game. If your wife realizes what you're doing, she already suspects something, but she doesn't know how much I know or what I'm planning to do about it. And what are you planning to do? I looked back at Derek's office building, all glass and steel and false promises. I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. That afternoon, I got 3 phone calls that made my day. The first was from the bed and breakfast, very apologetic about the misunderstanding with the reservation. They'd be happy to cancel the booking and reverse the charges, given the circumstances. The second was from Sally Chen at the Gazette. Mr. Masters, I wanted to let you know that our story about Derek Quimby's business practices will be front page tomorrow. We've also received some additional tips about his personal conduct that we're investigating. Additional tips? Anonymous sources, but very credible. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. The third call was the most satisfying. Derek Quimby himself, voice tight with barely controlled anger. We need to talk. Tonight. The Anchor's End, 8 o'clock. I'll be there. Come alone. Wouldn't dream of bringing anyone else. I hung up and smiled. The Anchor's End was Millbrook's oldest bar, the kind of place where fishermen and construction workers went to drink beer and complain about the weather. Not Derek's usual scene of wine bars and upscale restaurants. Perfect. Let him be uncomfortable for once. At 7:30, I drove to the Anchor's End. Frankie was already there, nursing a beer at the bar and pretending to watch the baseball game on the ancient TV. You sure about this? He asked, as I sat down beside him. Never been more sure of anything in my life. What if he gets violent? I looked around the bar. 3 construction workers, 2 fishermen, and the bartender, a former Marine named Tommy who'd thrown out bigger men than Derek Quimby with one hand tied behind his back. Let him try. Derek walked in at exactly 8 o'clock, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. His expensive suit and Italian shoes stood out like a sore thumb among the work boots and flannel shirts. He spotted me immediately and walked over, jaw tight with anger. You son of a bitch, he said, voice low. What the hell do you think you're playing at? I think I'm having a conversation with the man who's been sleeping with my wife. Have a seat, Derek. We have a lot to discuss. He sat down reluctantly, glancing around the bar like he expected trouble. He wasn't wrong. You can't prove anything, he said. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos from Lila's laptop, the 2 of them at dinner, her hand on his arm, both looking like teenagers in love. Can I? His face went pale. Where did you get that? Does it matter? I have dozens more. Photos, text messages, credit card receipts, hotel records. Want to see them all? What do you want? I want you to understand something, Derek. You think you're so clever, stealing another man's wife. But you picked the wrong man this time. Is that a threat? It's a promise. By this time tomorrow, everyone in Millbrook is going to know exactly what kind of man you are. Your business reputation, your personal reputation, your future in this town, all of it's going to be destroyed. Derek leaned forward, trying to look intimidating. You can't. I already have. Check tomorrow's Gazette, then check your bank account when your investors start pulling out, then check your phone when the building inspector shows up to re-examine those permit violations. The color drained from his face completely. You bastard. I'm just getting started. You wanted to play games with my marriage? Fine, let's play. But understand the rules. I don't lose. Ever. I stood up, threw a 20 on the bar, and looked down at him. Oh, and Derek, stay away from my wife. Because if I see you with her again, what I've done so far will look like a love letter compared to what comes next. I walked out of the bar with Frankie beside me, leaving Derek sitting alone in a room full of hostile stares. Think he got the message? Frankie asked. If he didn't, he will tomorrow when he reads the paper. But as we drove home through the foggy streets of Millbrook, I knew this was just the beginning. Derek might back off, but Lila wouldn't give up so easily. She was about to learn that her boring insurance agent husband had depths she'd never imagined, and that crossing those depths was the biggest mistake of her life. Thursday morning dawned gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that made everything look washed out and tired, perfect for what was about to unfold. I was drinking coffee in the kitchen when Lila came downstairs, already dressed for work, but moving like she hadn't slept well. She kept checking her phone, frowning at whatever she was seeing. Everything okay? I asked, all innocent concern. Fine, she said quickly, then looked at me with something that might have been suspicion. Evan, yesterday you seemed different. Is there something going on I should know about? Different how? I don't know. distant, like you're planning something. I smiled and took another sip of coffee. Just thinking about the future, about making some changes. She didn't like that answer. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened, the way she gripped her phone a little harder. What kind of changes? Oh, you'll see. I think you'll find them very illuminating. Before she could respond, I folded the newspaper, which I'd already read cover to cover, and handed it to her. You might want to read the front page. Interesting story about local business practices. She took the paper with trembling hands, and I watched her face go white as she read Sally Chen's exposé on Derek Quimby's business dealings. The headline was perfect. Local developers' shady practices exposed, unpaid bills, permit violations, and investor complaints. This is, she started, then stopped. Terrible, isn't it? The things people do when they think no one's watching. She looked up at me, and for the first time in months, I saw real fear in her eyes. Evan, what? I have to get to work, I said, standing and grabbing my jacket. Big day ahead, lots of revelations. I left her sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the newspaper like it might explode. My phone started ringing before I'd even reached the office. First Derek, then Lila, then Derek again. I let them all go to voicemail and listened to them later, savoring every panicked word. Derek, you son of a bitch, you destroyed me. My investors are pulling out. The city's launching an investigation. My reputation is ruined. This isn't over. Lila, Evan, please call me. I know you're upset about something and we need to talk. Please. Derek again. I know you did this. I don't know how, but I know it was you. You're going to pay for this. I deleted all the messages and got to work on phase 2 of my plan. Patricia Hendricks was waiting in my office with a stack of legal documents and a smile that would have made a shark nervous. Mr. Masters, I have to say, your timing is impeccable. Mr. Quimby's very public downfall has made our case significantly stronger. How so? Well, it's going to be very difficult for your wife to claim she was in love with him when he's revealed to be a fraudulent businessman who preys on married women, makes her look either stupid or complicit. What about the financial stuff? That's where it gets interesting. I've documented over $8,000 in charges to your joint accounts for hotels, restaurants, gifts, and travel related to this affair. In Maine, that's considered dissipation of marital assets, which means she'll have to pay it back in the divorce settlement. $8,000. I'd known it was bad, but seeing the number in black and white made my chest tight with anger. There's more, Patricia continued. I've been in touch with Derek's ex-wives. Both of them are willing to testify about his pattern of targeting married women. Apparently, he's done this before, multiple times. Lila doesn't know that. No, and when she finds out, it's going to destroy whatever fantasy she's been living in. Men like Derek are predators, Mr. Masters. They're very good at making their targets feel special, chosen. But once the conquest is complete, they move on to the next victim. I thought about Lila, sitting at our kitchen table, reading about the man she'd thrown away our marriage for. The man she thought was going to rescue her from her boring life with her boring husband. What's our next move? We wait. Let the situation develop. Your wife is going to be facing some very difficult choices in the next few days, and I suspect she's going to make some that will benefit us greatly. Patricia was right. By noon, the whole town was buzzing about Derek Quimby's downfall. The coffee shop, the post office, the grocery store, everywhere I went, people were talking about the newspaper story. Always knew there was something off about that guy, said Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman Derek had tried to force out of her house. Too smooth, too charming. Men like that are always hiding something. My husband worked construction for him last year, added Maria Santos, who ran the flower shop. Never got paid for the last 2 weeks. Said there were cash flow problems. But he was driving around in that fancy BMW the whole time. The consensus was clear. Derek Quimby was finished in Millbrook. And by extension, so was anyone associated with him. Around 2 o'clock, I got a call from Mike Sullivan. "Ev, you need to hear this. Ray was doing surveillance on your wife today, and she met with Monica Brennan at the coffee shop downtown. Monica's back from Boston? Yeah, and she's not happy. Ray managed to get close enough to overhear part of their conversation. Monica's pissed that Lila used her as an alibi without permission. Apparently, she's been getting calls from people asking about the girls' weekends that never happened." "What did she say?" "She told Lila to leave her out of whatever she's doing. Said she doesn't want any part of it. Then she got up and walked out, leaving Lila sitting alone. So Lila was losing her allies. Good. Let her feel isolated, abandoned. Let her understand what it was like to have the people you trusted turn their backs on you. There's more," Mike continued. "After Monica left, your wife called Derek. Ray couldn't hear the whole conversation, but she was crying. Something about everything falling apart and what are we going to do now? And Derek's response? From what Ray could tell, not very supportive. Sounded like he was more concerned about his own problems than hers. Perfect. The fairy tale romance was cracking under the pressure of reality. That evening, I came home to find Lila pacing in the living room, phone pressed to her ear. She was talking in the low, urgent tone she used when she was trying to convince someone of something. "No, it looks bad, but you have to understand. The newspaper got it wrong. Derek's not like that. He's a good man. He's just been unlucky." She saw me come in and quickly ended the call. "Who was that?" I asked. "Tessa. She had some questions about the newspaper story." "What kind of questions?" Lila's face flushed. "Just, people are talking. You know how this town is. Someone gets bad publicity and suddenly everyone's an expert. Must be tough for Derek having his dirty laundry aired in public like that." She looked at me sharply. "You sound almost happy about it." "Do I? I guess I just believe in accountability. People should face the consequences of their choices." "What's that supposed to mean?" I sat down in my favorite chair and picked up a book, The Picture of Casual Indifference. Nothing specific, just a general philosophy. You make your bed, you lie in it. You reap what you sow. That sort of thing. Lila stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out how much I knew, what I was planning, whether her carefully constructed lies were falling apart. They were, but I wasn't ready to let her know that yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray Morrison. "Subject and target met at Seaside Inn, 7 p.m. Argument in parking lot. She left crying. He left alone. Relationship appears to be deteriorating." I smiled and put the phone away. Lila was watching me, trying to read my expression. "Good news?" she asked. "Just work stuff. Nothing that would interest you." But it was very interesting to me. Derek was cutting Lila loose, probably trying to minimize the damage to his already ruined reputation. And Lila was about to discover that her knight in shining armor was actually a coward in expensive clothes. Around 9 o'clock, Lila's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. "I should take this," she said, heading for the kitchen. But I could hear every word through the thin walls of our old house. "Derek, please, we can work through this." "What do you mean it's over? You said you loved me." "No, I won't just disappear. We have plans. Derek, Derek." The sound of her phone hitting the kitchen counter, then quiet sobbing. I felt a moment of something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the $8,000 she'd spent on him, the lies she'd told, the 6 months of deception and betrayal. The pity evaporated like morning fog. When Lila came back to the living room, her eyes were red and her makeup was smeared. "Everything okay?" I asked, not looking up from my book. "Fine," she said, but her voice cracked on the word. "You sure? You look upset." "I'm just tired. I think I'll go to bed early." "Good idea. You look like you could use the rest." She paused at the bottom of the stairs. Evan? Yeah? Do you still love me? I looked up from my book and met her eyes. For just a moment, I let her see something real. Not the casual indifference I'd been projecting, but the hurt and anger and disappointment that had been eating at me for weeks. I love the woman I married, I said quietly. I'm just not sure she exists anymore. Lila's face crumpled, and she ran upstairs without another word. I sat in my chair for a long time after that, listening to her cry through the ceiling. Part of me wanted to go upstairs, to comfort her, to try to work things out. But that part was getting smaller every day, because every tear she shed now was nothing compared to the tears I'd shed alone in this house, wondering where my wife really was and who she was really with. Tomorrow, she was going to learn that actions have consequences, and that sometimes the person you hurt the most is the one best equipped to hurt you back. Friday morning arrived with the kind of brilliant autumn sunshine that made everything look crisp and clear, perfect weather for endings. I woke up early to find Lila's side of the bed empty and cold. Downstairs, I found a note on the kitchen counter. Couldn't sleep. Went for a drive. Need to think. Back later. L. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash, then made coffee and settled down to wait. Because I knew exactly where she'd gone and exactly what she was going to find when she got there. My phone rang at 8:30. Ray Morrison. She's at Quimby's house, he said without preamble. Been there since 7. Lot of shouting going on. Neighbors are starting to notice. Good. Let them notice. You want me to get closer? Try to hear what they're saying? No need, I can imagine. And I could. Derek trying to distance himself from the scandal, Lila begging him not to abandon her, both of them realizing that their fairy tale romance had turned into a nightmare. At 9:15, Patricia Hendricks called. Mr. Masters, I have news. Derek Quimby's business partners filed for emergency dissolution of their partnership this morning. Apparently they're trying to distance themselves from the scandal before it destroys their other projects. What does that mean for him? Financial ruin, most likely. He's going to lose everything, his business, his house, his reputation, and men like Derek don't handle failure well. Meaning? Meaning he's going to be looking for someone to blame, and your wife is a very convenient target. Perfect. Let Derek throw Lila under the bus. It would just make my case stronger. At 10:30, my phone buzzed with a text from Lila. We need to talk. Coming home now. I smiled and put the phone away. Yes, we definitely needed to talk. She walked through the front door at 11:15, looking like she'd been through a war. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her clothes wrinkled. But it was her eyes that told the real story. Red-rimmed, desperate, full of the kind of panic that comes from watching your world collapse. Evan, she said, voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk. I figured we might. Have a seat. She perched on the edge of the couch like she might need to run at any moment. I don't know how to say this. Try the truth. It's refreshing. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I've made some mistakes. Mistakes. Interesting word choice. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I leaned back in my chair and studied her. 6 months ago, this woman had been the center of my universe. Now she looked like a stranger, hollow-eyed, desperate, broken. Okay, I said. I'm listening. I've been seeing someone, Derek Quimby. It started as just friendship, but it became more. How much more? We had an affair. For about 6 months. 6 months. I let the words hang in the air. That's a long time for a mistake, don't you think? Tears started rolling down her cheeks. I know how it sounds. But Evan, you have to understand, I was unhappy. We barely talked anymore. You were always working. I felt invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to fix that by sleeping with another man. It wasn't like that. Derek made me feel alive again. He made me feel beautiful, wanted, special, like I mattered. And I didn't. You took me for granted. We both did. We got comfortable, complacent. The spark was gone. I nodded slowly. So you thought you'd find that spark with Derek Quimby? Yes, and I did, for a while. But not anymore. She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. He's gone, Evan. He said it's over, that he can't be with me anymore, that the scandal has ruined everything, and he needs to focus on saving his business. Ah. So now that Prince Charming has turned back into a frog, you want to come home? Don't say it like that. Please. How should I say it, Lila? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you threw away our marriage for a man who dumped you the second things got difficult. I know how it looks. Do you? Do you really? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our neighborhood, the place where we'd planned to build a life together. Because I don't think you have any idea how this looks. I turned back to her, and she must have seen something in my face that scared her, because she shrank back against the couch. Evan? Let me tell you how this looks, Lila. It looks like a woman who lied to her husband for 6 months, who used their joint money to finance hotel rooms and romantic dinners with her lover, who involved her friends in an elaborate web of deception, who was planning to leave her husband for a man she barely knew. Her face went white. How do you know all that? Because I'm not the stupid, boring husband you thought I was. I'm an insurance investigator, remember? I'm very good at uncovering fraud. I walked to the desk and pulled out a thick manila folder. Would you like to see the evidence? Photos of you and Derek at restaurants, hotels, his house. Copies of text messages from your laptop. Yes, I know the password. Credit card statements showing $8,000 in charges related to your affair. A complete timeline of your deception. She stared at the folder like it was a bomb. You've been spying on me. I've been documenting the destruction of our marriage. There's a difference. Evan, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can work through this. I love you. I want to save our marriage. Do you? Because 6 months ago you were texting Derek that you wanted to leave me, that you'd never loved me the way you loved him, that you couldn't wait to start a new life together. I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, you were thinking very clearly. You were planning your exit strategy. The only thing you didn't plan for was Derek turning out to be exactly what he is, a predator who targets married women and then discards them when they become inconvenient. Lila's sobs were getting louder, more desperate. Please, Evan, I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. You can't fix this, Lila. You can't unfuck Derek Quimby. You can't unlive 6 months of lies. You can't unspend $8,000 of our money on your affair. Don't talk like that, please. Why not? Because the truth hurts? Because you don't like hearing about the consequences of your choices? I walked over to where she sat and looked down at her. You want to know what really hurts, Lila? It's not just the cheating. It's the lies, the elaborate deception, the way you looked me in the eye every morning and pretended to be my loving wife while planning your escape. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. You destroyed our marriage, our future, our trust. And for what? For a man who dumped you the second his reputation was threatened? She looked up at me with desperate eyes. What can I do? Tell me what to do to fix this. I sat back down and opened the manila folder, pulling out a legal document. You can sign these divorce papers. Her face went completely white. Divorce papers? Drawn up by the best attorney in town. No-fault divorce, but with provisions for the dissipation of marital assets, adultery, and fraud. You'll be responsible for paying back the $8,000 you spent on Derek, plus my legal fees. I get the house, the car, and most of our savings. You get to start over with nothing, just like you wanted. Evan, no. Please. This is what you chose, Lila. This is what 6 months of deception gets you. I chose wrong. I know that now. Derek was a mistake, a terrible mistake. But I love you. I want to be with you. You love me now that Derek's gone. You want to be with me now that your backup plan fell through. But 6 months ago, when you had to choose between your marriage and your affair, you chose Derek. People make mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting to pay a bill or missing an anniversary. What you did was make a choice. Every day, for 6 months, you chose to lie to me. You chose to betray our marriage. You chose Derek over me. I stood up and walked to the door. I'm going out for a while. When I come back, I want you gone. Take whatever you need for now. We can arrange for you to get the rest of your things later. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe Derek will take you in. Oh wait, he already made it clear he doesn't want you anymore. Evan, please. Sign the papers, Lila. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I left her sitting on our couch, surrounded by the wreckage of the life she'd chosen to destroy. I drove to Frankie's house, where I found him in his garage working on his motorcycle. He took one look at my face and handed me a beer. It's done? He asked. Almost. She's at the house now, probably packing. How do you feel? I thought about it. Empty, relieved, angry, sad, all at the same time. That's normal. You've been through hell. Yeah, but I'm coming out the other side, and she's not. Frankie was quiet for a moment. You think you went too far? Do you? I think you did what you had to do. She made her choices, and choices have consequences. We sat in comfortable silence, drinking beer and listening to the sounds of the neighborhood, normal life, continuing despite the drama. Around 5 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from Lila. I'm staying at my sister's in Portland. I signed the papers. They're on the kitchen table. I'm sorry, Evan, for everything. I showed the text to Frankie. That's it then, he said. That's it. But it wasn't quite over. There was one more thing I needed to do. That evening, I drove to the Anchor's End. The bar was crowded with the usual Friday night crowd. Fishermen, construction workers, a few tourists who'd wandered in looking for authentic local atmosphere. I found Derek Quimby sitting alone at a corner table, nursing what looked like his 4th or 5th whiskey. He looked up when I approached, and I saw something in his eyes that might have been fear. Come to gloat? He asked. Come to make sure we understand each other. I sat down across from him. Up close, he looked terrible. Unshaven, red-eyed, defeated. The golden boy who'd thought he could take whatever he wanted was learning about consequences. Your business is finished, I said. Your reputation is destroyed. Your investors are gone, your partners have abandoned you, and the city is investigating your permit violations. I know. Good. Now let me tell you what happens next. You're going to leave Millbrook. Tonight. You're going to disappear, and you're never going to contact my wife again. Ever. She's not your wife anymore. Ex-wife, then. The point stands. Derek drained his whiskey and signaled for another. And if I don't? I leaned forward. Then what happened to your business will look like a love letter compared to what happens next. I have friends in this town, Derek. Friends who don't like men who prey on married women. Friends who know how to make life very unpleasant for people they don't like. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You destroyed my marriage, but I destroyed your life. We're even. But if you ever come near Lila again, if you ever try to contact her, if I even hear that you're thinking about her, the deal is off. Derek stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Good. Your moving truck better be gone by Sunday, or we're going to have problems. I stood up and threw a 20 on the table. Have a safe trip, Derek. And remember, I'll be watching. I walked out of the Anchor's End and into the crisp October night. The harbor sparkled under the streetlights, fishing boats bobbed at their moorings, and somewhere in the distance, a foghorn sounded its lonely warning. It was over. 6 months of lies, deception, and betrayal ended in a single day. Lila was gone, Derek was finished, and I was free. Free to start over. Free to build a new life. Free to find someone who understood the value of honesty, loyalty, and commitment. I drove home through the quiet streets of Millbrook, past the Victorian houses with their glowing windows and their hidden secrets. But my house was different now. Clean. Honest. Mine. I parked in the driveway and walked up to the front door, fishing for my keys. On the porch was a single envelope with my name written in Lila's careful handwriting. Inside was a short note. I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't blame you. But I want you to know that what I felt for Derek was real, even if it was wrong. I hope someday you can find happiness with someone who deserves you. I'm sorry for everything. Lila. I read the note twice, then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. What she'd felt for Derek was real. Good for her. What I'd felt for her had been real too, and she'd destroyed it without a second thought. But that was her loss, not mine. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my favorite chair, looking around the living room. Tomorrow, I'd start redecorating. New furniture, new colors, new everything. A fresh start in a clean house. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Hendricks. Divorce papers filed. Should be final in 60 days. Congratulations on your freedom. Freedom. Yes, that's exactly what this was. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the empty room. To new beginnings, I said out loud, and to the satisfaction of a job well done. Outside, the fog was rolling in from the harbor, wrapping around the old Victorian houses like a blanket. But inside, everything was crystal clear. Lila had wanted excitement, passion, a grand romance. Instead, she'd gotten public humiliation, financial ruin, and abandonment by the man she'd sacrificed everything for. Derek had wanted another conquest, another married woman to add to his collection. Instead, he'd gotten exposure, disgrace, and exile from the town he'd tried to dominate. And me? I'd gotten exactly what I'd set out to get. Justice, revenge, and the knowledge that sometimes the boring insurance agent gets the last laugh. The weekend was over, and so was her happy ending.